If strength training keeps slipping through the cracks of your schedule, even though you know it matters to you and you want to be consistent with it, this episode is for you. When we're consistent, we make progress. And when we make progress, we gain momentum. With momentum, consistency is met with less resistance. And before long, we're stronger, fitter, we feel better, and our entire relationship with exercise is different because we're different. We're not people who struggle to exercise anymore. We're people who struggle to imagine our lives without it. I'm Laurel Beversdorf. I help people build strength and endurance in ways they can actually stick to. If you've ever wondered what to focus on, what to ignore, or how to make strength and cardio feel doable with the time, energy, and equipment you have, you're in the right place. Most people are taught to think about strength training in terms of workouts. And in this mental model, the workout is what's acting as what I like to call the smallest functional unit that helps us to either maintain or build our strength. And then the question becomes, did I get my workouts in? And when life inevitably gets in the way and we miss one or two of those workouts, we start to feel like we're failing. So that's the mental model we're going to retool today. The reframe is this. Instead of thinking in terms of number of workouts per week, we're going to think in terms of number of sets of exercises per week. Let's talk about sets, baby. Man, I've been waiting a long time to use that joke. So to understand this reframe and how we can make it about sets, we need one piece of exercise science. So when we talk about how much strength work to do, we're really talking about strength training dosage, not what exercises, not how much weight to pick up in those exercises, but really how much strength training are we going to do? So for example, the CDC recommends that the amount of strength training you do be twice weekly, whole body strength training, which is broad and largely doable. What it doesn't tell us is it doesn't tell us how long these workouts need to be. It doesn't really tell us how many exercises we should do. And it doesn't tell us how many sets of those exercises we should do. And it's really broad, general advice, as most advice should be when given to the population at large. But here's the important part of all of this in very plain English. Your body mostly cares about how much strength work you do over the course of a week. It doesn't really care how you package it. So think of it like you have two big buckets. You could fill one bucket all the way up to the top in one pour, and then that other bucket you could fill up on a daily basis, 1 cup at a time. At the end of the week, you have 2 full buckets. You filled them in different ways. One, you filled all at once. The other you filled up using 7 smaller volumes of water. But in the end, the total amount of water in both buckets is the same. So we can do the same amount of strength training in one longer session or spread it out across several shorter sessions and end up with similar results. And this is supported by a 2021 research review by Iverson and colleagues, which shows that strength gains are similar across different training frequencies when the total amount of work is the same. So frequencies is how many different times we work out in a week, how many different times we went to fill that bucket. Was it one time all at once? That's 1 workout a week, right? Was it 7 smaller cups throughout the week? That's 7 different workouts. When volume is matched, when dosage is matched, the results are largely the same. A single set of a single exercise is the smallest functional unit of strength training, not the exercise and not the workout. Sets are what actually drive this strength adaptation at the most reduced level. And not only sets, but challenging sets. So let's talk about sets. What are sets? Well, sets are a series of repetitions of a movement that we do. Let's say it's the squat. People get hung up on reps. How many reps should I do? Instead, be interested in how many sets you should do, and make sure by the end of this set, this series of repetitions, the set is starting to feel challenging. Challenging to the point where you could really only do 1, 2, maybe 3 more reps before really needing to stop. We call those reps in reserve. We'll probably have a whole episode about reps in reserve. That was a challenging set. So if you're lifting a weight where by the end you did 6 reps, before you feel like you really could only do a few more reps, that would be with a heavier weight, right? But maybe you're lifting a lighter weight than that. So you're able to accomplish 14, 15 reps before you feel like you really could only do a few more reps. That was a challenging set. How many challenging sets of exercises we do in a week is how dosage, or the technical word is volume, is measured in research. And it's the thing I'm going to suggest you start to focus on and target for your weekly strength training. Challenging sets. Let's talk about why focusing on sets changes a lot for us. So when a single set and an accumulation of multiple sets over the course of a week becomes the thing that matters, suddenly our ability to fit meaningful strength training into our week becomes much easier to do. A single set of a single exercise can take less than a minute, sometimes less than 30 seconds. And so now we have the ability to progressively fill up our bucket. We have the ability to chip away at our target number of sets each week in increments of something as short as a minute at a time. Now, it's probably not very practical to try to work out for, a minute. Typically, working out involves putting on some clothes and kind of getting ourselves in the mood. And so we probably want to spend a little bit more than 1 minute doing our strength workout. But suddenly, 10 minutes is enough time to get a considerable amount of volume in that will help take you toward your target volume for the week. So now we're no longer dealing in these big chunks of time. Did you do the workout or did you not do the workout? And suddenly we're not thinking of it in this all or nothing way, like I didn't do the whole workout, so the whole thing doesn't count. We've stripped down the way we conceive of the work we have to do to something much smaller and much more doable. A set. So even if you only got 2 or 3 sets in a particular bout, right? Instead of workout, let's think work bout. That's still 3 challenging sets that are going to add up over the course of a week. Let me give you an example. Let's say you used to do 2 whole body workouts, one on Monday, one on Thursday from 8 to 8:45 a.m. These workouts between them included a total of 8 different exercises. So you do 4 exercises in one workout, 4 in the other workout, and within those 2 workouts, you would do 4 sets of each of these 8 exercises. So let's shift from 2 45-minute workouts to 8 exercises multiplied by 4 sets, which is 32 sets. Let's say we're doing 4 sets of squats, glute bridges, strict presses, rows, calf raises, farmer carries, planks, and bicep curls. Now, instead of needing 4 sets of all of these exercises to take place in 2 containers of time in our bucket of a week, we can start thinking about how our entire week is the container and how we can chip away at these 32 sets when opportunities arise. So opportunities that might arise are, you notice that you have a 10-minute span of time between dropping your child off at school and needing to start getting ready for work. That 10-minute span of time, if it's happening multiple weekdays a week, maybe 5 weekdays a week, that really adds up. And within a 10-minute span of time, you'd be surprised how many sets you can accomplish. Let's say we get 3 sets in our 10-minute chunk of time, 5 days a week. That's 15 sets of our target 32. That's half our strength training that we just worked into our week in 5 little chunks. Now we've got 17 more to go. Okay, well maybe Saturday mornings you are an early riser while the rest of your family is asleep. And you wake up with a glorious 30 minutes of you time. Guess what you might be able to accomplish in those 30 extra minutes you just found on Saturday morning? You might be able to get more sets in. Maybe you can get 10 or 12. And then you've got 5 sets left for Sunday. Now, in this example, you're training a little bit every single day. That's totally fine to do. Maybe your schedule changes a lot. Maybe your workload changes week to week. Thinking in sets makes scaling your training down during busy periods feel much clearer and much less emotional. So instead of asking, how do I shorten my workouts if I don't have 2 45-minute chunks this week? Or which exercises should I cut from my workout? You have a much simpler question to ask yourself. The question is, how many sets do I realistically have time for this week? So if you know, using our example of 8 exercises, 4 sets per exercise, 32 sets, you know that doing 32 sets of these exercises takes you a total of an hour and a half. So you were doing 2 45-minute work bouts, right? Well, you don't have an hour and a half this week, but do you have 45 minutes? Do you have 15 minutes? Because instead of doing 32 sets, you could do 16 or 8. Yeah, 16 sets in the week. 2 sets of each exercise, or 8 sets in a week. Yes, 1 set of each exercise. And you might be thinking, Laurel, is there even a point to that? Well, if a challenging set is the smallest functional unit that helps us to either maintain or build our strength, then yes, there absolutely is. Here's the science in plain English. Your fitness is always either being built, maintained, or slowly lost, okay? Doing even a small amount of strength work could help you maintain and prevent loss, or even slow down loss. And in many cases, it can even help you make progress. 1 or 2 challenging sets per exercise per week is far, far better than none. And if we think about this in terms of money as an analogy, it becomes really clear why. Because money works the same way. Money is either being increased in our bank account, maintained in our bank account, or slowly, or in some cases quickly, lost. When you keep doing something, even a small amount, it's like keeping money in your savings account. Now, you might not be getting rich that week, but you're not draining the account either. You're holding steady, maybe even inching it forward. When you do nothing, that's a little bit like pulling money out of savings. Remember, your strength will either build, be maintained, or be slowly lost. So when you do nothing, that's like pulling money out of savings, out of your fitness savings. You don't just pause progress, you actually create a little hole that you have to then climb out of later. And that's why spotty training feels really hard. Lots of stops and starts, lots of something mixed with lots of nothing. You're constantly rebuilding what you lost instead of stacking small deposits over time. So thinking in sets makes it much easier for us to feel this. Okay, this is a low capacity week. I don't have a lot of time. I don't have a lot of energy. What can I afford to do? Could I do 1 set of each exercise? Maybe 2. And then you move on with your life, knowing you've protected your strength instead of digging yourself a hole. And that when your schedule clears up, you'll be back to your full workload and you won't have missed much. In fact, you might be a little further ahead. Something done consistently over time beats a lot of something done occasionally. Another reason I like this sets approach is that if you've ever been interrupted, you get an important call that takes up all your workout time, or your kid's sick at school, you got to go pick them up. It's a bummer, but it's less of a bummer when you realize, hey, even though my workout was interrupted, I still got 4 sets of these exercises in. And those 4 sets count toward your goal. So now, instead of it being like this entire workout was a failure, I didn't get it in because I didn't finish it, all or nothing, you think, well, I didn't get every set in that I wanted to accomplish, but I did get 4. And maybe I'll be able to pick up some more time in the coming days this week to chip away at what I wasn't able to do today. So we shift away from this all or nothing, the workout has to be exactly like this for it to count, to this every set counts mentality, which is actually research-based. It's accurate. It's a way that promotes an attitude towards strength training that's more conducive to being consistent, to continuing to chip away at those sets, knowing that what matters is that you get some amount of meaningfully challenging sets in, and that you try to accumulate enough meaningfully challenging sets over the course of a week. I like to think of accumulating these sets a little bit like working on a project around your house, one that's a multi-day project. A couple months ago, I refinished a dresser. I bought it used. It had a really thick coat of white paint on it. I had to strip the white paint off, which took a very long time. I then had to stain it multiple times, and then I had to put some lacquer or something over the top of it. And so all of this required effort, and it required me stepping away to, rest, but also let the stain dry. And so I believe I was able to accomplish completely refinishing this dresser over the course of a week. I wouldn't have been able to do it all at once, but I chipped away at it slowly using the time I had available day to day. Some days I put in more time than others, but all of the work eventually accumulated to leave me with a beautiful refinished dresser at the end of the week. So think of your strength training for the week like chipping away at a week-long project. Not such a high-stakes thing where I've got these 2 big chunks of time to accomplish these 2 workouts, and if I don't get them in, I failed. And instead, be an opportunist and look for pockets of time to chip away, to work on that project, to get the work done. And one more thing I'll say is that I'm making it sound like every week you're just going to randomly look for time to get in a few sets. And that's not the approach I recommend. I think scheduling exercises is a really good idea. Set aside chunks of time where you plan to strength train, but maybe you start to notice that you're able to complete sets towards your goal utilizing much smaller chunks of time. And if you divide up the work into shorter, more frequent bouts instead of longer, infrequent workouts that you struggle to make time for or have time for, you will successfully be able to chip away at the work each week. Remember, strength, your strength, doesn't care when you train or how much you do at once. It mostly cares that you perform enough challenging sets over the course of a week and that you rack up enough weeks and months and years in a row to continue to build on that strength. There'll be future podcast episodes about what building looks like, but for now, the consistency piece is far and away the most important piece. And hopefully this approach helps you to be more consistent. Briefly, I want to share how I've seen this work for a client. Her name is Deb. Deb is a yoga and Pilates teacher. She's in her 60s. She already valued movement. She knew strength training mattered, but she was having a really hard time sticking with it. And her issue wasn't motivation, and it definitely wasn't effort. It was how her workouts were structured. She believed strength training meant she had to do 2 one-hour sessions every week with what felt like a long list of exercises, where she would go into her workout room and have to kind of slog through this overwhelming amount of work. And just thinking about this felt daunting to her. She had the equipment, she had the space, she even had the support. She hired me for accountability. But I noticed that no matter how confident she felt in her exercise technique, no matter how well she seemed to understand the exercises, the amount of rest she needed, and everything else that's important for the workout to go well, what was really getting in her way was this mental block around having to step into this room for such a long period of time. So we changed the framework. What Deb expressed to me that she really wanted was she wanted a weekday habit. She wanted to go into her workout room every weekday, but she only wanted to be in there for 10 to 15 minutes a day. So we completely rearranged her work so that she was doing 2 well-chosen exercises every day, between 2 and 3 sets of those exercises every day, 5 days a week. On the low end, she's doing 20 sets a week. And on the high end, she's doing something like 30 sets a week. By the end of the week, she had definitely completed full body strength work without ever doing a single long session. So once the pressure to do it all in these 2 chunks of time disappeared, her consistency snapped into place. And with that, so did making real progress to her strength. Because strength isn't built in a week. In fact, real strength, is built in time courses of months and years. We want to think about months and years. So then the question becomes, how can we make the weeks repeatable so that we can stack them consistently over months and years. In Deb's case, this change wasn't about changing her motivation. It wasn't even about teaching her something she didn't already know. It was just simply about restructuring her workouts so they fit her life better. This approach, I've been using it myself in my own training for a long time now. My schedule, because I work from home, I'm self-employed, changes week to week. I'm also currently training for the Boston Marathon, and I'm starting to ramp up my mileage. And I've been training for longer distant races with pretty ambitious race goals for a while. So I've had to really look carefully at my strength training volume, choose my exercises wisely, and then economize. Because I need energy to run, and I need energy to run my business, and I need energy to be a mom and a wife. So because I have this schedule that's constantly changing based on what deadlines I have coming up, and because I have this gradually increasing running volume that I'm trying to meet each week, I stopped thinking in terms of rigidly scheduled strength workouts, and I started to think in terms of accumulating sets of these key exercises that I use mostly to support my life, my health, and my running. 2 sets here, 3 sets there. Sometimes at the end of the week, I have what I call leftovers. Those were the exercises I didn't get to earlier in the week, and then I accomplish them on my last day that I train. I don't do all the sets of any given exercise on one workout day even. Some days I only have time for 2 sets of cable rows, and so I do my 3rd or even my 3rd and 4th set later on in the week when I do have more time. I'm also using this approach with other clients. For example, my client Lisa has a very busy work schedule. For her, her priorities are the compound movements, the multi-joint exercises. And so some weeks she just only has time for those multi-joint exercises. These are the ones that hit the biggest masses of muscle. And so some weeks she skips the accessories. Those are the exercises that are more isolation exercises that train smaller groups of muscles. And there's often overlap between what the compound movements train broadly and then what the accessory exercises train in a more targeted way. So by skipping the accessories, she isn't leaving out whole groups of muscle because those already got hit in the compound. She's just not targeting those particular muscle groups, the biceps, the calves, the adductors, with as much training volume every single week because sometimes her work schedule doesn't allow for that, and that is okay because she's still making progress. So the organizing principle doesn't have to be number of workouts, number of minutes. It's sets. It's sets per major movement pattern or sets per all the exercises you use to take you closer to your strength goals. And when you stop thinking in units of workouts and start thinking in units of sets across the week, I think this can, for many of us, make strength training feel much more flexible. Because now even one challenging set counts, and it's way more than no challenging sets. Low volumes can still drive adaptations, especially when our sets are challenging, when effort is high. They can, at the very least, help us maintain what we worked hard to build. And all of this supports consistency, which is key. It is number one. Without consistency, we can't really make progress no matter how perfect our plan is, how precise our technique is. We need to be engaging in this work consistently for progress to happen. If this sounds intriguing to you, if this reframe is interesting, and you want a visual walkthrough for how to choose exercises and think about volume in terms of sets, check out my YouTube video linked in the show notes. And for those of you who want to try this approach and you'd like a way to visualize it using a tracker, I created what I'm calling my strength macro tracker. This is a simple way to track your movement patterns and sets across the week. It emphasizes exercises and sets rather than workouts. I've also linked 4 starter exercises for you, demo videos of these exercises for you, as well as the tracker. So if you're looking for some good exercises to put together for whole body strength training and you'd like a little guidance on your form and technique, those demo videos are also included. I hope that this tracker gives you a visual for how to envision the work you have to do during the week. So I'm going to link that in the show notes as well. Finally, if this episode was helpful, please rate, review, subscribe, and share it with a friend who you know is trying to be more consistent with their exercise. Thanks for listening to the Practical Fitness Podcast. We'll see you in 2 weeks.